I want to mention, there was a comment earlier about tariffs and all. I want to talk about the American yacht building industry when it was Trinity and Christensen and Delta on occasion and Berger and all those. And people think that, well, I believe that what killed the American yacht building industry was the attitude toward wealth, going to 180 in the United States, where it once was revered, now it was reviled. And so if you talk to those builders in Germany and France and Italy, Netherlands, you'll find that many, many, many Americans are building yachts. They're just not building them here. They were driven out of here. So anyway, to get to our next session, digital issues, misrepresentation, and IP in the yachting industry, I'd like to introduce Patricia Flanagan, who is a partner in the West Palm Beach office of Bowen, LLP, where she's a member of the Intellectual Property Practice Group. She's a highly regarded leader in the field of trademark and copyright law. Patricia focuses her practice on protection, monetization, and enforcement of such intellectual property rights, both domestically and international. Patricia?
Hi, everybody. Hello, everyone. There we go. So excited to start after the break so that all of you are well rested for our conversation today. I'm going to start by introducing our panelists. Our first panelist, starting from the far side, Michael Moore, the founder and chairman of Moore & Co., PA, chairman emeritus of the International Seakeeper Society and International Superyacht Society, AVO top-rated lawyer and among America's most honored professionals, top 1%. He's also board-certified maritime lawyer, inducted into the Florida Daily Business Review Hall of Fame for achieving multiple multi-million-dollar verdicts. So pleased to have you on the panel, Michael. We also have Collin Heimensen with MarineMax. He is the National Sales and Brokerage Director with over 30 years of experience in the marine industry. On a day-to-day, he drives sales strategy and team development nationwide, focusing on results and customer experience. The former general manager of MarineMax Clearwater, where he, in that role, led the team to top performance, earning the Top Gun Award in 2020. Also a certified professional yacht broker based in Clearwater. He is deeply involved in the community and served as the Commodore of the Clearwater Yacht Club. So glad to have you on the panel as well, Collin. So our topic today, digital issues, misrepresentations, and IP in the yacht industry. But we're actually going to talk a bit about illegal charters in there as well, as it's quite affected by digital media. I think as we discussed earlier today, AI, is in full swing with online listings, social media influencers, different types of advertising being used. The risks associated with the use of listings through these different and marketing through these different channels, particularly reaching into the U.S. And reaching into Florida, creates a number of complexities. We have complexities of foreign law that might come into play. We have complexities of federal U.S. law that come into play, and then reaching into one of the states, you have the state laws. And with respect to digital media in particular, these laws apply, and you can reduce risks of them, but there's no way to contract around them if you're conducting activity, for example, within Florida, or advertising or providing listings in Florida. So with that, I want to start with Michael in terms of have you seen an uptick in charter sales transactions, and is that as a result of digital media?
Testing. I've seen rather explosive growth in that area after COVID, and in almost every case, it seems that the digital platform is the means by which these owners and charters are put together. So yes, I mean it's all about digital marketing, digital management, digital platforms, where the real players historically were the owners and the charterers. There's a new player in town. That's the digital platform operator.
And so with respect to those charter sales reaching into, for example, Florida, can you describe some of the laws that might apply to those transactions?
Sure. I think that historically most everyone in this room knew the sort of the beginning of the beginning was you had the traditional charters that were commercial, that was centered in the Med, the amoeba charters, the what were called the crude charters or trade charters. They had all the bells and whistles, the class, the insurance, all the things the flag state required, and a very active marketing and actual yachting. I think the McKinsey & Co. report recently said it's 70% of all yachting is done in the Med. I think to Bob's point, there may be a lot of American owners, but the yachting itself was always done in the Med, but that's changed. But I think the rules are changing. So as things morphed from the ever increasing efforts of the law to get ahead of reality, you had the advent of bareboat chartering as a way to sort of get around the requirements of both either European requirements or American requirements. I think in the U.S. you had the unholy triangle, or the three things you had to have to be a true commercial vessel. You had to have a U.S. built, a U.S. flagged, and a U.S. owned vessel. It had to be an inspected vessel because that's the way the public was protected by the laws. But the law is always changing, trying to keep ahead of, or at least hold on to the back of the arrow of progress as people try to recreate things to, have their livelihoods and conduct their business affairs. And so the morphing went to bareboat chartering. In the advent, it was a true bareboat charter analysis. There wasn't a lot of law in that subject, but you had the fundamental laws of bareboat chartering that every maritime lawyer, and there's a bunch in this room, knew. You had to have a true divestment of ownership. You had the owner could only retain one indicia of ownership, and that was title, but ownership and possession was transferred to the bareboat charterer, and that was law. I mean, and then the first piece of that that well-settled law that fell away was they allowed the owners to keep insurance, a certain type of insurance, and so they allowed the owner to maintain or retain title and insurance. But after COVID, there was this just explosion for some reason of bareboat chartering, and you started hearing this expression, illegal chartering. So that's kind of what brought us to recent days having to do with new laws that have been passed. So maybe that would be my introductory comments before it gets into a monologue. But there have been new laws, one effective July 1st of last year. Yeah.
Yep. So tell us about that new law.
Okay. Thank you, Patricia. Yeah. Okay. So, have we had our break yet? I'm just So, what happened was you had the initial explosion. I think it was led by COVID because for some reason people thought that getting out on the water was healthy, and that may be not true empirically, but it was in timing it happened. And so the first thing that you could see, and from my point of view, was the length of the charter. A bareboat charter is a divestment of ownership. It is a pro hoc we say, meaning for this time ownership. It's they call the charterer a bareboat charter is a disponent owner. He is in all respects an owner, and so the charterer would have to assume all these responsibilities. And historically, you had a length of time element. It had to be a true, you don't buy something for a day, you buy it for months, like Exxon does it for years. It's a very common structure, bareboat chartering, but suddenly you're seeing day charters, literally 3 and 4 day charters, and not much seemed to be happening from the point of view of law enforcement. The Coast Guard did not get up in the morning and go, let's go get some yacht owners and some bareboat charters and shut them down because they're making money. That's not the way it works. They just kind of let it go on. And then something happened. And what happened was a man named Sergio Pino, nice guy from all accounts. People like to say that usually when they talk about this man's, what happened to him. He was out for a day. It was Labor Day 2022. He was with a bunch of boys and girls, friends of his daughter, and he hit a channel marker. Now, remember, no chartering involved. This is a yacht owner. He's just out there enjoying his life, but he hits a channel marker and he kills Lucy Fernandez. Well, she died. I don't know if killing her is exactly the way to put it, but he hit a channel marker. She died, and her friend Kathy Puig will be in a wheelchair for the rest of her life. And of course, as Congress always does, it overreacted, maybe, by some accounts. And they passed what is called Lucy's Law. Now, Lucy's Law raised something, and I haven't seen this word until I looked into it, because you're always asking, and the phone starts ringing, and what the word was livery. Last time I saw the word livery was in a John Wayne movie when the guy goes up and wants to take some horses. I need some fresh horses. And he's the livery. That's the livery. It's someone who rents something. It gives it someone else to use, in this case a horse. Turns out it comes from the word livery, but if you put D-E in front of it, it's delivery. And it actually really came up with delivery offshore. You ever heard of an offshore closing? How many of you have ever heard of an offshore closing? Yeah, right. Remember the whole delivery offshore was historically where the delivery would take place offshore, so because things happen on land. You're going to have taxation issues. You're going to have all the stuff we learned this morning about customs duties and tariffs and things of that nature. You're going to have to call Jay Reynolds, Leslie Linfernell, and get them on the phone and go, "What's up? How much are we going to owe?" Well, that was a livery. It was actually a way to say that possession, ownership, and control had passed offshore. Doesn't that sound like the PDA that you all know and love, the Protocol of Delivery and Acceptance? Same thing, except it's not a horse, it's now a vessel. So what's happening here is this old word has come into fore, and let me give you the bottom line. The bottom line is that as of July 1st of last year, we can go through all of the analysis if you'd like to. I think I can speak to that. But at the end of the day, when you charter a vessel from the owner, charters to the bareboat charterer, and the bareboat charterer brings in the captain, and there has to be someone to run the boat. At the end of the day, fundamentally, if you're running a business, that captain has to be a licensed master. And if that captain is not a licensed master, and the gentleman who called me right over there when I was standing waiting to come up here only 20 minutes ago, that's the first question I asked him. I said, "Was the vessel in charge of a licensed master?" And he said, "What?" I said, "I'll put you down for no." We were just out there having fun. I said, "Yeah, well, okay." But anyway, the bottom line is that is fundamentally what the law means. They have other things. You don't need to worry about it. If you're running a business, these digital marketing people, they're running the business that puts together owners and charterers. You got to have a business model, and much what the business model is, without a doubt. Licensed master better be on board. The penalties for not having this, that's actually an exemption to the law, but no one is going to come from New Jersey for their 5 days on Biscayne Bay or on Palm Beach or whatever and take a course and get a ticket. They're not going to do it. So the legislators up in Tallahassee know that. So the way you get around it is, licensed masters, if they're in command, then they're exempted from this requirement to have this little ticket. By the way, every livery operator has to have it, and that's no problem. That's their business. They're happy to go out and do it. It takes a week. But they don't really do anything. They're just a digital online platform. So they're hooking up owners and charterers, but whoever is that bareboat charterer hires that person to operate the boat, it better be a licensed master, or the penalties are very severe.
What are some of those penalties?
Well, let's use one for, and I'll tell you what they are. What they've done is they've aligned the penalties for yachting with the laws that govern cars. For example, if you leave a scene of an incident involving a death, it is a felony of the first degree. Maybe it could be the third degree, actually. I'm not a criminal lawyer, but it's a criminal penalty. But it's a serious felony is a serious offense, and every single thing has aligned with that kind of severity. That's what this new law is all about. And quite frankly, it just falls right into our space in that there's a very simple answer to the problem, and that is make sure that your bareboat charterers hire a licensed master. And oh, by the way, you can't be a bareboat charter with us unless you have a licensed master. You have to be selected from this list of licensed masters. You could probably bring your own if you had one who was licensed. But the penalties are everything that you know about driving under the influence, boating under the influence, and everything that goes with that. Was it reckless and wanton, or was it truly accidental? Was alcohol involved, not involved? All the things you go through for the breathalyzer on land stuff, that's now been brought to the yachting world, and therefore to our doorstep.
How far is the reach of this new law?
Well, I think that Florida is a bellwether state, so this is a Florida law. It only started getting traction after Labor Day of 2022, and only came into force. Things like it'll take a little time. July 1st of 25. That's pretty meteoric, actually, in terms of legislation. Ron DeSantis, not a guy that's big on certain types of controls and governmental regulations, just signs it immediately. I mean, he signed it into law on the first pass. So I think you'll see certainly other states like Michigan and California would probably be my two guesses, maybe New Jersey. They all have like 1 million boats or more registered in their jurisdictions, and so you're going to see it. And it's state law, by the way. Federal law, every maritime lawyer knows that admiralty law is federal and it's supposed to be uniform across the country, but something has to make it uniform. So I think you're going to see a quick succession of other states getting into line, and then ultimately it's going to be part of the admiralty law. Right now it's state law. It's two laws. The Safe Boating Act is one, and the other what they call Lucy's Law. I don't know what the actual title is, but it's always has this. It has some noble sounding name, but everyone calls it Lucy, after Lucy Fernandez.
What would you say are the more immediate ramifications and maybe more long-term ramifications of the law?
Well, I think that there are ramifications that this is an exponential thing, where it's not a straight line by any means, but people come to Florida now, in particular, and they love getting out on the water. And oh, by the way, they like the experience. It's like chartering in the mega yacht sector. What are you going to do after you have that wonderful, time out on the water? And apparently the Coast Guard, and it's, by the way, the laws are enforced by, figure this one out, by the Freshwater and Fish Game Commission. But I'm sure they didn't need that, but they got appointed to do that, and they're very aggressive about it. We've had in our office numerous conversations with the people in Tallahassee and other places, but with the kind of shortens to FWC, the Florida Wildlife Commission, or Florida Wildlife and Fish and Freshwater Game Commission. But after you have that wonderful time out on the water, you call Collin and you buy a nice boat from MarineMax. So that'll be the implication. And I think also all these captains, I think, are going to be gainfully employed. I think on balance, I see nothing but good things happening for the yachting world. I think that the insurance, everything has to be harmonized between insurance and flag state and law. But if you got to keep, if you have a mortgage, you better get get your banker in there too. So you got to have, for sure, harmony between the bankers, the flag state, and the insurance companies. And almost all of these policies, as you now know, you're going to hear later today about insurance. So I don't want to encroach on my colleague Casey Flipman's presentation, but it has to do with insurance, I'm told. So, but they all now talk about these things. Licensed master. You got to be careful. We probably see more violations of policies regarding named operators and whether it's a generic naming or whether there's an actual name in the policy. Which is something that you always want to know who was in command that day when the accident happened. But all of that is now lining up. I mean, it's completely the harmonizing of the whole water-oriented water activities on the water, yachting, et cetera. So I think that's what I think it's going to be a very good thing for the industry. The insurance brokers are going to be mindful of what's in their policies. Those are contracts. The captains are going to be more employed because you got to have a captain on board, and you'll start to appreciate how nice it is to have a captain on board where you can enjoy your day. You're going to have more people buying. Collin needs to get into the dock business because that's the one clog in the snake, or the chicken in the snake. There's no docks. There's no berths, but that's another problem. I'm sure maybe MarineMax will open up its marina division or something and start selling berths. But that's the only thing that I think is one of the issues. Of course, these smaller boats, and now we're seeing charters of almost all sizes. So even a little boat has a captain on board. They have to have virtually under the new law. So I think you're going to see a lot of positive activity. That sector of the marketplace is getting a lot more attention. I went to an F1 party the other night, and it was amazing that people commented on all the boats going up and down the restaurant was on the Miami River, and just these boat after boat after boat was coming by, all with their charter guests on board dancing and enjoying their life. And the people from the F1 were just amazed. You could hear the comments like, wow, I've never seen anything like this. What does that mean? That's a really nice yacht. I remember thinking, that's really a lousy yacht. Yeah, it's amazing that thing is floating. I think it may be down by the stern. But in their world, it looked like magic. It looked like heaven. It was beautiful weather and beautiful people and out on the water having a good time. So I think it's going to be a big uplift. That's a lawyer's unauthenticated, non-empirical comment of what I think is going to happen.
Thank you, Michael.
My pleasure.
Before I move on to asking Collin about digital media and how they're using it at MarineMax, did you have any comments, Collin, about whether MarineMax is going to be purchasing docks or?
I'll pass on that one.
Oh, see? I can neither confirm nor deny.
You had a lot of disclaimers on your talk. So
I did.
Perfect. Well, let's move on then to how is MarineMax using digital media in the sales of yachts and its online platforms?
So really, we use it a lot like every broker in this room. I think it looked like it's kind of half brokers and half lawyers in here. But really, one of the things that is become really interesting is, there was a comment earlier about the checkbox on Yacht World. We have to have a lot of responsibility, and our brokers are an extension of the brand, and there's a ton of responsibility in making sure that the data is accurate. And the topic was intellectual property today, and also being good stewards of making sure that we're not reusing trademarked content without permission. And so, one of the things we've instituted is we have a team that actually, I won't use the word scrub or scrape because that sounds AI, because it's not an AI tool yet. But we actually are reviewing our brokers' listings pretty regularly to make sure that we're not in violation of a lot of things, but primarily trademarked material.
What are some examples of things that you've identified as part of that auditing review process?
Copy and pastes that maybe copied and pasted too much or too little. Also, the use of AI, right? People, I think in one of the earlier panels, they talked about in legal documents, sometimes the AI spits out something that looks really great, but it's not 100% accurate. One example that it was not us, but it was there was a press release that had a AI generated boat on it, and it was supposed to be a Sea Ray 32 Sundancer outboard. Now this boat kind of looked like a Sea Ray 32 Sundancer outboard, but it had one outboard on it, which is not possible for a 32 footer. Maybe these new 800 horsepowers or whatever. But the hardtop looked like it came off of a Four Winds. The hull windows looked like a Beneteau, and it just AI in the hands of someone that's not an expert can cause serious, significant problems. And that image was a great example because at first blush, even an editor might have thought it was accurate, but it was far from accurate.
One of the things I noted at the beginning of the presentation was that, these are risks, and particularly, putting out there false images, creates risk of things that you can't really get rid of. Like, you can reduce them through these processes, and that seems like what MarineMax is doing, is trying to identify those and get rid of them. Because it does bring into play federal laws across the U.S. when you're using those in the United States. And then, if you're reaching consumers in Florida, it brings into play Florida laws.